My name is Ines Rashad. I am in the under 12s. Azmeena, we would like to welcome you to one of our home football school sessions. Your story is inspiring, and we are ecstatic that you made the time to come in and talk about your life. Azmeena Hussain is a very successful lawyer who is actively involved in social justice, in community sport, and helping women reach their dreams. She is passionate about supporting migrants and refugees and making sure that the most underprivileged in our community can have a voice. She sees that soccer can help strengthen communities, and she has been an important member on the board of Football Victoria. We are honoured to have had her play for Glen Eira FC and look forward to seeing her back at Lord Reserve. Azmeena's own story is one of beating adversity and realising her own dreams in sport and in life. She did this with her mother supporting her on the sidelines and her comedian brother Nazim keeping her laughing along the way. Now I will hand it over to Azmeena.
Thanks, Ines. Thanks for that intro. That was very kind. My brother makes me laugh just sometimes, not all the time. So everyone on the phone, are we all play at Glen Eira? We're all muted.
All play for Glen.
Oh, that's great. So, and everyone's in grade 5 or grade 6 or year 7. Is that right? Yeah.
Hey, girls, I think Azmeena is going to have a more interaction dialogue. So if you want to come off mute and just say something and go off mute, that's okay. But by default, they stay on mute for background noise, Azmeena. But I think if you want to have two-way conversation, you just ask the girls to come off mute. So let me hop back off.
Absolutely.
Cool.
What I thought I would do, and having a chat with John, was John just said, why don't you share your story with the girls? So I personally, you never know whether your own story is all that interesting, but I'll tell you a bit about me and my story to get into speaking to you girls here, all part of the football family at Glen Eira. So I actually played my first season with Glen Eira just last year. And just a little secret between you and I'd actually never played football before. So it was a pretty daunting experience. And I think when you get to my age, so I'm in my 30s, it's not very often that you do something that's new or something that takes you out of your comfort zone. By the time you get to this age, you sort of have your friends, you finish school, you finished uni, you have the same friends, you mix with the same people, you go to work, and it's not very often that you do something new. And for those of you that are in grade 6, you're about to enter a new phase of high school. That's a really different experience and different people. And for those of you that are brave doing year 7 in this current class, I take my hat or my hijab off to you because that's a pretty unique experience as well. But a bit about my story. I am the youngest of 3. I have an older brother and an older sister. And I was born in Melbourne, born in Australia, and I've lived in Melbourne all my life. Since I was about 6, 7, grade 1, I had my mind fixated on being a lawyer. And it's the only career path I've ever considered. It's a bit funny when you think about it, when you've only had one career path that you've ever wanted to pursue. Are there girls here that know what they want to do already when they finish school? Yeah? Keep your hand up if you want to be a lawyer. Oh, come on, Harley, is that a half hand? Awesome. Well, hopefully I can convince some of you by the end of it to become a lawyer. I mean, it's been a pretty rewarding career for me. But the reason why I wanted to become a lawyer at such a young age, when I didn't really even know so much of what a lawyer was purely because of my mum and a journey that my mum went through herself in navigating the law and working through difficult issues that she navigated herself. And I remember when I was in prep in grade 1, I would go meet these people with her. and I didn't know what these people did. But when my mum took me there, she would hold me in her arms, and she'd be really anxious, and she'd be really tense when she'd hold me. But then I noticed when we left, she'd still hold me and carry me out, but her arms were a lot looser and her shoulders were a lot loose. Just like after you warm up in a game, you notice that tension around your shoulders drops a bit. That's how my mum was when we left. And I didn't know what these people did, but I said to myself, I'm going to be whatever they do because they give my mum some peace and put her at ease. And later on, I realised that they were called lawyers. But I remember when my mum first moved to Australia, after marrying my dad, she didn't know anything about the way of life here in Australia. She got a job, and she worked in the city, and my dad would always pick her up on the same corner, on the corner of Russell and Collins Street in the city. And where she stood, there was a signpost next to her. When my dad would come pick her up, my mum was always swaying left to right. And my dad never knew why, when my mum was standing on this street corner, why she was always swaying left to right. My dad finally asked my mum, why are you always moving when you're standing on this street corner? And my mum said, haven't you seen the sign? It says no standing anytime. And then my dad was like, oh my gosh, my mum really knows nothing about being in Australia. So my mum knew nothing about the way of life here. And over time, my mum and my dad set up a business here in Australia. And it was really successful. And then my sister was born. And then 5 years later, my comedian brother Nazim was born. And then a year later, I was born. And not long after my first birthday, my dad actually went back to Sri Lanka. And he left my mum here with 3 kids. And she had a number of legal issues that she had to navigate herself. And that was quite a process for my mum. And that was when she would take me to these appointments. And I noticed when we'd leave, she'd be a lot more calmer. And the first lawyer that she met, that person bragged about practicing in what he called ADT. And he said, yeah, I practice in ADT. And then one day I said to my mum, what's ADT? And he said he specialised in any damn thing. But over time, things got really complex. And so he put my mum in touch with a specialist lawyer. And those people helped my mum. And they took away her fears and her anxieties. And my mum was able to navigate this difficult period of her life. And going through that process with my mum, it had a huge impact on me. And so from about the age of 5, grade 1, I was really committed to wanting to become a lawyer. And like I said, I've never really considered any other career path. And growing up, when I was in grade 3 and 4 and 5 and up until grade 6, I used to always say to my mum, don't worry, mum, just don't worry. Leave those issues. I'm studying, I'll become a lawyer and I'll help you out. But obviously over time, she'd sorted through those. The day I did become a lawyer, you can imagine my mum was quite emotional that day because she knew 100% I'd done it for her. Going through that process and witnessing the way in which my mum had no support here taught me a lot about resilience and really standing up in the face of adversity. It made me realise that regardless of who you are or you can always find ways or find support networks to support you. And it doesn't matter how hard or difficult challenges are that we face in life. There really isn't anything that we're faced with that we're not able to handle ourselves. So once I finished school, I went to university and started an arts law degree. And it was actually the first time that I wore a hijab. So this thing I'm wearing on my head, which is a scarf, it's called a hijab. It's really good on those bad hair days when you don't want to do your hair. And in all honesty, I keep this scarf right next to my desk here. So when I have to go on video, I just quickly wrap it up. My hair's pretty bad under there right now, but it works a charm. But going to uni was actually the first time ever that I wore my scarf. And so I went to a school in Glen Eira called Sacre-Cœur. Does anyone go to Sacre-Cœur? It's a Catholic girls' school in Glen Eira. I went there to school. But the moment I finished school and I was wearing this scarf was the first time that people ever actually asked me about where I'm from, or occasionally, the occasional time, people would speak to me very slowly. And it was just a shocking experience because it just really shocked me. Like, I remember one time I was buying a coffee and this lady spoke to me really loud and very slowly. And it was actually a good thing because I was tired and I hadn't had coffee in my system. But sometimes it just really shocks you. And I've never experienced that until I started wearing this piece of cloth on my head. And so that whole process really made me explore my identity. And it made me realize that we have a big job to do in normalizing different. Like, we all have a story. We're all either born here, or our parents have come here from somewhere, or our grandparents have come here from somewhere. And that common denominator, that common element we all share is we're all female, and we all want a sense of family and connectedness and to belong. And we all connect on that. But what we tend to do is when someone looks a bit different or sounds a bit different, is we apply lenses on that and start what I would call otherizing people. And it set me on this really interesting journey of wanting to normalize different. So people that look like this are just as Australian as anyone else that was born here, or their parents were born here, or we've all come here from somewhere, of course, unless we've got an Indigenous background. So in my career, that's been a huge part of something I'm really passionate about. And I've been really committed to using my legal skills to facilitate access to the law for people that are marginalised in our community or that might look different. And in particular, I'm really passionate about working with women having access to the law or access to other opportunity. So if you think about it right now, when we watch the news and we see Dan Andrews up there on the news, we often see a white male and he's supported by another white male and he's advised by another white male. And then we cut to the media and it's all white Anglo-Saxon men or a couple of females. But what really isn't reflected in that is the makeup of our community. And we all have an important role to ensure that there's equal access to opportunity and equal platform for voices to be heard. So essentially my life mandate has been about ensuring that no individual walks this earth without a platform to be heard and to contribute to society. So often when you're in grade 5 or grade 6 and you're looking out to what options there are in terms of pursuing a particular career or a career path, there's no denying that often in times you think, oh no, but is that really an opportunity for females? Or, you might want to go be an engineer or work in construction. Females aren't often represented in these professions, and that often sometimes can be a deterrent when it shouldn't be. And I think we all have an important role to play in that, to normalise different, to ensure that women are represented in all aspects of leadership, in government, in media, in politics. And that's why when John asked me to speak to all of you, I was excited by the prospect of knowing that whilst my generation might not have done a good job at that, you all have the opportunity to do that. You all have the opportunity to challenge the status quo and redefine what's normal. So, for example, you just look at the current rate of pay at what women are paid in comparison to men. Knowing that Sam Kerr is probably earning half of what her male counterparts is being paid is a ridiculous statistic. And it's something that we have a responsibility to do to change, to provide a sense of equality and equal opportunity for women. So gender balance, that's something that I think is something I'm very passionate about. And it's important for our economies, for our communities, and for our organisations, for us to be able to thrive. So in practice, what does that mean? It means ensuring that we have women represented throughout our workplaces, in the media, in politics, and in every aspect of our interactions, because without it, when we're not really representing the values and views of all Australians. So at present, looking at it from a female perspective, there's an 18% gender pay gap for women. That means if you're a female in the workforce, you're currently and most likely earning, or on average, an 18% less than your male counterparts. And women in senior leadership roles, well, they only make up about 30%. So there's a lot of work to be done, and that responsibility, I say, sort of rests with all of us. So what does that mean from your perspective? You're thinking, I'm in grade 6 or year 7. What can I do? I'm not out in the workforce, or I'm not in some leadership role as such. But we all have an important role in challenging that status quo. And what does that mean? That means about starting a conversation or questioning things. So, for example, within your own schools, if there's an opportunity for a leadership role, making sure that there's a gender balance. So are there as many males as there are females? Or if you're at a female-only school, are different voices being heard? People from different culturally diverse backgrounds, or people from minority groups, whether they have a disability or they're from an Indigenous background, or they openly speak about their sexuality, ensuring that each little minority group has the opportunity to be heard. You don't need to fix the situation, but you can start the conversation, and you can speak up, and you can ask questions. We all have a responsibility to play in changing that status quo. Just like, for example, climate change. You'll see lots of young people that go out and protest and speak up. Why do they do that? Because collectively, as a group, they can start a really important conversation. And when you do that collectively, you've got one voice and another voice and another voice and another voice. You've got a collective group of people speaking up about an important issue. What does that do? It raises the profile and creates a platform. Once you've got a platform, people hear. And those senior leaders in political roles and senior leadership, they hear that. And that has a huge ripple effect. I mean, I don't know if you're all big on ordering takeaway food, but now, even on Uber Eats, for example, you can rate someone based on whether or not they are a eco-friendly provider. And why do these little things happen? Because there's collective voices that speak up about climate change and other issues that affect us. And the same goes for women having representation in positions of power and leadership. If you've got a goal to become a school teacher, strive to become a senior teacher and a principal, because there's no reason why you can't do that. If you've got a career aspirations to be a lawyer or to go into the law, reach really high to be a judge, because then you can really make change in terms of challenging that narrative. And there's no reason why you can't achieve that. Someone's going to be in that role, and there's no reason why it can't be you. And one of my favourite mottos in life is that if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. Don't just build a door to create an opportunity, but knock it down and bring other women with you along on the journey as well. I think in anything that you set out to achieve, it's so important that you bring other women along with you on that journey, because we all have an important role to make sure we make it easier for the next woman. So good luck with your finishing year 6 this year. It's a very big year. Set yourself really big goals. I remember when I was in school and I was going through high school, and I thought, oh my gosh, getting into law, that's really hard. You need a 90+ enter. I started saying to myself, why am I questioning myself? Because someone needs to achieve this. Someone has to get into that career, or someone has to get into law. So why would I let my male colleagues do that when it could be me, or my male school mates when that can be me? Set yourself big goals, and I can tell you the only person that will stop you from achieving those big goals is yourself and your own self-doubt. We as women owe it to each other to really push ourselves and to challenge ourselves and to bring our colleagues and our friends and our schoolmates with us. Because when we do that, we'll really challenge that narrative and challenge that image of who should be the boss. And that should be us women. Look at New Zealand. They're a terrific example of a female prime minister that's normalising women being in senior roles. So that said, I hope to see more than one of you running for the role of prime minister soon, to be captain of major national soccer teams, to be on big boards and to be CEOs of companies, because there's no reason why you can't achieve it. And I know it's in your hands. So thank you.
Thanks, Azmeena. If I can ask the first question, is I've heard that you have had gold medals in your lounge room. Is that right?
Who told you that?
I just stood up a bit online.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's true. So when I actually have 2 state titles in cross country. And when I was in primary school, I was really into cross country running, and I remember that there was a bit of advice that my mum gave me, which is similar to the advice I've just given you, which I said to my mum, I really want to get into cross country and be good at it. And she said to me, you see the girl that's coming first, whenever you run, just take a step when she takes a step and stay up with her pace. And I remember I did that, and it just miraculously worked. And so then from late years into primary school, into high school, I took off on a career, a small pathway of running and cross-country running, and I ran for Victoria for 3 years and made it to national titles, and it was a really exciting part of my schooling years. But then I was really committed to wanting to get into law, so I stopped running for the Victorian Institute of Sport and started focusing on studying at law, because it obviously when you're in sport, as you know, training takes a lot of time. When you're at school, so you're juggling school and sport, and it's hard to maintain the two when you get to that level. But yes, I do. I wish I had them here to show you.
Harley has a question. You can say it.
I'm Harley Carrer. I'm under 12 Bubs. So you said that you wanted to be a lawyer ever since you were in year 1. Was there ever a time when you doubted yourself? That you either said, "Oh, this isn't achievable," or you said, "I give up"?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, I did. And I look back now and I think, why did I spend so much time worrying about that? And I think it's very common and normal for women in particular to do that. We often always look at things in the lens of, I'm not good enough, but I'll try, or I'm not good enough, or that's the default position. And I can't tell you enough, it's so easy to say it, but to truly believe it, and I want you to believe it, is mindset plays a huge part in your success. And so I spent a lot of time doubting myself, but then at the same time I committed to studying a lot. But like I said, I then started saying to myself, someone's going to achieve this, and it's probably going to be the boys at school, because they generally don't adopt that sort of mindset that us women do. We're perfectionists and we're really self-critical of ourselves. So I started changing my mindset, and I can't tell you how much that plays a huge part, and it's something you should always reflect on. If you ever start doubting yourself, whether it's in sport or whether you start saying, I'm not good enough for this, say to yourself, well, someone's going to do this and someone is going to be good enough, so why can't that person be me? And I can tell you, it can be you.
Does anyone else have a question? Pearl, you can go.
So if we were experiencing like sexism or racism or if we saw someone else experiencing that, what would you suggest we do in that situation?
Yeah, that's a very important question. Does anyone have any initial thoughts or suggestions? Do you ever find that sometimes you're playing on the weekend, playing soccer, and someone might say something to one of your teammates? What's your automatic response?
Probably shut it down.
And you'd stick up for them because you know it's not the right thing that they're doing?
Yep, that's great. Anyone else?
Or another one is you can tell a trusted adult near you.
Yeah, that's good. It's so important that if you do witness, if this happens to you personally or to someone you know, it's really important that you do speak up. And speak up to someone that you're comfortable with, whether it's your coach, whether it's your teacher, or whether it's to another student that you trust. But the most important thing is that you speak up, because having a conversation puts it on the radar, to be addressed, but to also make people realise that it is an issue, and to then stamp it out, as you said. And that aspect is so important. I mean, for example, a lot of people don't know that Muslim women that wear the hijab, are often bullied at school because they look different. And it happens beyond school, at work and at uni. But if you don't experience that, a lot of women or people don't know that. But the only way that you can raise awareness around it is by speaking up and having a conversation, and then supporting others that experience that as well. So Pearl, your question's a really good one, and I would say the starting point most certainly is to speak up, and then to raise it with someone that you trust that can help address the issue.
So, Azmeena, if I could ask a question. My name's David. I'm a lawyer. We have met before, and hi, Georgia, the other lawyer in the room. It's been a while. But Azmeena, if you're on your role at Football Victoria, what role do you think sport can play in terms of as a change or a motivator for cultural change?
A huge role. I mean, and that's part of the reason why I've joined the board at football. Sport brings people together, and when you are playing sport, if you realise in your team, you suddenly become one team, and you're all advocating and you're all champion the same cause, and you're all supporting one another. And that's what sport does. It brings people together, and it creates this sense of connectedness. And in all honesty, I think everyone should be a part of a sport, because it really brings community together, and it has a huge role to play as a vehicle for change. You only need to look as far as the Saving Hakim campaign. Is everyone aware of who Hakim Al-Arabi is? So Hakim travelled to Thailand and was held in a detention camp there unlawfully. So he was held against his right, and he should have been free to move around the country, or at the very least come back to Australia. Here in Victoria, we were made aware of this, and collectively his team, he plays NPL, his team were able to mobilise and to come together to advocate about this cause as a collective voice, as his team, and stand together as teammates. And essentially, the sport of football saved his life. And were able to advocate to bring him back to Melbourne. So whilst it's great to play with your teammates and it builds confidence in a social setting, sport does more than that. It is a community, a place for people to belong and to get to know other people that you might not always interact with within your own school groups.
Thanks, Azmeena. I've got to go to dinner's on the table, but that was a fantastic presentation, Azmeena. Thank you very much for taking the time. See you.
Does anyone else have a question? Amelia, you can go.
You and your brother have obviously very different careers, but do you ever feel overshadowed by him?
He feels overshadowed by me. We have very different careers, and sometimes I'm at work reading boring documents and he'll send me a funny photo of him wearing a mask or with long hair or something. And I just think to myself, I've chosen the wrong career path. But my brother bases a lot of what he does around a similar theme of what I do. So we're both about standing up for the little person and providing them a voice and a platform to be heard. And Nazim does a similar thing. So if you sort of see a lot of his comedy is around identity, around being Muslim and Sri Lankan and being different, and a lot of his jokes are around that too. So we both have a similar interest in a similar cause, but most certainly he has the much more fun, exciting, and hilarious career than mine. But do I feel overshadowed? Sometimes I'm like, damn it, when he gets all this free stuff sent to him and drives a Mazda car that's given to him for free, and but he works hard, so he does well. Yeah.
Does anyone else have a question? Lila can go.
Hi, I'm Lila, and my question is, have you ever been told by someone that you weren't good enough to do what you wanted to do?
Absolutely. And you just reminded me, Lila, of a story when I was in year 11 at school. So I was in year 11, and I'll share it with you. I am hopeless at maths. If you told me your year of birth, I can't work out your age because I don't know maths. And I remember I was in year 11 at school, and I was studying maths, I think it was basic maths. But weirdly, my teacher told me at school, oh, I don't think you should consider law. Remember our school captain from the year before, she became dux, and she was the one that gets into law. You know, you should really be a bit realistic with yourself and consider another career path. And that had a huge impact on me because it was the only career path I'd ever considered. And to be told that by a teacher in particular, it had a huge impact on me. But again, it draws me back to what I was saying before, which is it's all about you and your mindset. And if you tell yourself you can't do it, or someone tells you you can't do it, well, the only person that's going to achieve that is yourself. And it's all about your mindset. So if you say you can't do it, well, you probably can't. But if you tell yourself you can, and there's role models out there that have achieved it, well, absolutely you can achieve it. So I think we all experience that at some point or another. Sometimes if parents, to protect us, tell us, you shouldn't do that, or maybe don't, it's a bit beyond you. But really challenge yourself. And I think you should always set yourself a goal every year to set yourself a challenge which is outside your comfort zone or beyond your capability. So if you've got a PB in running, set yourself a new one that stretches you. Or you've got your mind on what you want to achieve next year at school in your grades or in a particular subject. Set yourself a goal that's a bit higher for you to reach, because what you'll see is you'll stretch yourself, and it'll only be your mindset that holds you back.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question? Ruby, you can go.
Hi, I'm Ruby, and my question is, did you ever consider pursuing as professionally?
Yeah, absolutely I did. And I was probably at one point where I did get to a stage where it was, do I want to go down the path of law or continue running professionally? I actually, when I got quite senior or at the competitive end of cross country, I remember I was at a state finals and I was there with my mum, and my mum had a big 2-litre of Ribena. For some reason, she thought Ribena was the best drink to drink before you run. I don't think any of you probably drink Ribena before you go and play a game of soccer, but that's what my mum gave me. And the Victorian Institute of Sport came over and they said, oh, where's your coach? And I said, oh, my mum was like, oh, I'm the coach. And they were like, no, where's your actual coach? And she was like, yeah, I'm the coach, while she's pouring me some Ribena. And then they said, oh, no, is your mum your coach? And I said, yeah. And they said, oh, we've got to get you a proper coach. So it was then at that point where I had to sort of make a decision. And I was really passionate about wanting to get into law. So I parked running and then started studying. But then when I got to uni, don't do this, but I just started eating heaps and socializing with friends, and your fitness can just dwindle downwards. So it's good to keep a fitness regime going. So if you always go for runs or kick the ball on the weekend, keep doing it and keep doing it consistently.
Does anyone else have a question? Adele, you can go.
My question is, what were your character strengths that you have, like honesty, teamwork, and how did you use them?
That's a good question, Adele. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. I think I don't know. This is hard. You've got me. I think resilience is probably one. In a lot of the work I do, the reality is there really isn't many people that look like me in that space. And so as a result, you need to develop a level of resilience. So, for example, I'm a partner at a law firm, and there's no one that looks like me in the room. In the around the board table or around the partnership table. In sport, I sit on the board at Football Federation. Again, women are represented, but they're a minority, and we need more of them. And as a result, you sort of need a level of resilience, because people can just look at you at face value and make presumptions about who you are or why you're there. So I think resilience is one. And I don't know if it's a good thing, but I'm a bit impatient. I like to do things. And so that's another, I'd say. And to pick a third one, I'm really passionate about bringing others on the journey with me. So I think if you're a leader, so if you're a school captain or if you're in a leadership role at your school, success is only achieved if not just you achieve it, but you bring all your teammates with you as well. And they feel and experience that same level of success as well.
Alice, say a question.
Do you still go for runs?
Yes, I do. Believe it or not, right now, I've actually got my feet in a bucket. And I've got my feet in a bucket because I was silly. I went for a really long run, and then the next day I went for another run, and then the next day I went for another run. And I did about 25 kilometres in the space of 3 days. Right, my feet are really sore.
I'll just quickly ask my question and jump off.
I think it's so important to keep fitness going, especially now that we're all stuck at home. So running, being fit clears your mind, and you probably experience that when you go for a run. Just keep it up. Hopefully you don't end up in a bucket like me.
Does anyone else have a question? Georgia, you can go.
Sorry. Georgia, how are you?
Good,
we met last year. I'm a lawyer as well. I was doing a course, a VU course that FV is involved with last night, and they put a statistic up that 29% of women at FV are in leadership roles. And it's not really a question, it's just an observation. And with Peter Philippoussis resigning, I would love to see a woman as a CEO at Football Victoria. So I just feel like it's, it's especially with the Women's World Cup coming, I feel like it's the perfect time for that to happen, which I know you can't comment on, but I just thought I'd put it out there. I was a bit surprised by the statistic, really. I shouldn't be, because it's pretty consistent with what else is happening, but I thought, well, it seems like an opportune time now.
Yeah.
So good
No.
luck with that. I know you're on the board and you know, it's a governance thing, but good luck.
Well, when the campaign starts, most certainly, if you know of any suitable women, we should be rallying them and we should be putting.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, it's a unfortunate stat, and I think it's on all of us to change it. Yeah.
Thank you for tonight too. It was great.
No, thank you.
Does anyone else have a question?
Yes, please. Can you hear
Yeah.
me, Ines? Can you? Fantastic. I am being called to dinner. Hey, Azmeena, my name's Simone. I'm actually on the Glen Eira committee. I'm not a lawyer, but thank you for reminding me of my responsibilities as a woman in leadership. So you've really kind of put a rocket up me. I'm also a budding soccer mum, and just hearing you say that you only started playing soccer last year, I'm like, hey, why the hell can't I join a team? I'm a bit older than you, and I'm not. It sounds like a gift, a natural runner. But anyway, you've fired me up, so thank you for that. I'm interested to hear a bit more about your work at InTouch. I believe you're on the board there. I guess you probably have to be mindful of this audience. But yeah, I can imagine as a not-for-profit, you're having to navigate some significant challenges at this time, and also love to hear about how you're managing to support the clients of InTouch right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So InTouch is a service for women that experience domestic violence. And it's a particularly unique service in that it assists women from a multicultural background. So you might have heard of people that are here on working visas, or skilled visas. So, for example, the Australian government puts out a call saying we need people that are engineers in a particular field. And then people from overseas can come to Australia. Often they come with their partner, and the wife is essentially dependent on the husband's visa to be in the country. And if they're subjected to domestic violence, they're in this ridiculous power imbalance where not only are they a woman, but they're a woman that their rights are basically subject to the man allowing her to stay here. So as a result, it assists this particular vulnerable class of women that experience violence. And what's been an unfortunate stat is that of late there hasn't been as many complaints to services by women. And if you think about it, we're all stuck at home, we can't go out. So as a result, some women don't have access to services to be able to reach out and to get help. It's really timely to mention that Are You OK Day is on the 10th of September. Does everyone know what Are You OK Day is? Yeah. Are You OK Day is a really important day which reminds us that we all have an important role to do to check in with one another. And it's not a matter of just saying, are you okay? Or there are different ways that you can ask that to check in with your friends and your teammates. You know, asking simple questions like, how are you traveling? How are things going at home? Because doing that provides opportunity for people to speak up, whether they're being bullied, whether they're sad, whether even just this concept of being isolated at home is having an impact on them. And that's what this service InTouch hopes to provide by providing a service for women where they can check in if they're not okay, and to provide them with support and help to navigate and to get through that difficult period. Hope that is its appropriate answer.
Does anyone have a question? Or okay. Sorry. Azmeena, from the whole of Glen Eira Football Club, we would like to thank you so much for giving your time to speak to us all. We are very grateful. I particularly enjoyed hearing about the idea of normalising different. We hope you stay safe and enjoy the rest of your night and the weekend. Thanks to all the Glen Eira footballers for coming tonight, and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you so much.